There are more opportunities to learn today than ever before. Information and knowledge have never been more abundant or accessible. But why should we spend time learning? How should we approach learning? And what topics should we focus on? Our next presenter will help answer these questions. Harold Osmundson currently serves as International Director on Toastmasters International's Board of Directors. He's a lifelong learner and a self-confessed bookworm. Please help me welcome Harold to present Lifelong Learning.
All right, thanks very much, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and any guests that we have. Appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight and to share some ideas on a topic that's near and dear to me, and that's learning. When I first heard of the opportunity to speak on learning, I thought about what would I share? And tonight's presentation is exactly that. It is simply about how can we learn throughout our lives? How do we approach learning from a lifelong learning point of view? And if you're okay with it, I'd like to share a few visual aids to help make some kind of visual associations with the content and the idea. So bear with for one moment. With a little luck, you can see the slides. I'll do my best to keep this moving along and use PowerPoint effectively here. Thinking of learning, I kind of would love to say or share this analogy or metaphor of enlightenment. Imagine that as we are born into the world, we tend to see things kind of like this picture right here. Pretty much everything is dark, and there's just a little bit of light on the horizon, and that light is really represents our instincts, and the brain cells that we've been given, things that are innately ours. Exploring and navigating through life at this point would be full of challenges. We would stumble, we would fall off some cliffs, and it would be painful. And we would learn through experience, but painful experience. And if we're lucky enough to have a great environment around us, some good parents, maybe over the years that came from birth, we would begin to see a little bit more light, but it would still be painful. We would still have plenty of mistakes. Maybe about 20 years after birth, we would see the world a little bit differently, thanks to experiences, good friends, again, our parents, education, whether that's in high school, college, advanced schooling. But we still have quite a bit that is not illuminated. And we'd still have to navigate through life and the world by a lot of trial and error, a lot of falling down and getting up, responding to surprises. Not bad, but wouldn't it be great to experience our lives like this in full daylight, where we can see everything and the path is clear? To me, that's the end. That's the goal of lifelong learning, which comes from acquiring knowledge from various sources and experiences. If we look at this shelf of books, we can almost see the light emitting from it. It's so blinding. And that's kind of how I look at this idea of learning, acquiring knowledge from various sources, and why we would do it. So to kind of get this going, why would we want to continue learning after school? Well, one, also to limit mistakes and to add more enjoyment to our lives, right? To experience life in full daylight. Any task we do, if we have a little bit of knowledge to go with it, it's more enjoyable. Even if it's changing oil on my lawnmower or emptying it on the snowblower, or if I even have to do that, every task is more enjoyable. Learning also increases our value to the world, to society. It could be in a professional sense, but also in the personal sense. We can contribute more to the people around us and experience a better life because of that. It sharpens our mind, keeps us sharp throughout life. And I'm starting to think about things as far as when I get older, or as I get older, excuse me. I want to fight off cognitive decline as much as possible. And a good learning habit that looks at learning as a lifelong activity can help with that. And finally, it keeps us young at heart by keeping us curious, humble, never thinking that we know too much or that we've come to the end of all we're going to learn, but always exploring. That's fun. And I think we might have to ask, if anybody is asking, we might have to answer, are we ever too old to learn? Well, this man right here is Warren Buffett, pretty wealthy man in the world. Currently, he's 90 years old. He became a millionaire first, I believe, at age 56. So it wasn't right away in his life. And his partner, professionally, Charlie Munger, is 97 right now. And you think about that and say, wow, that is just incredible, right? These guys at that age are still going strong and doing quite well. And if you look at others who are leading countries or in positions of responsibility, you'll realize, wow, a lot of them are older and their minds are still sharp. Maybe there's something to that. So we're never too old to learn. Now, when we think about the idea of how do we learn, I'll propose there are two paths to learning. And this is just a simplification, but it's a way to approach the idea of how do I keep learning throughout life. One option is fairly obvious. It's consuming knowledge from various sources, whether they're written or spoken, but consuming knowledge, reading books, observing others, overall, just bringing knowledge in no matter how it comes in. But in my own practice, it's generally consuming books. If I only did that, I would only be book smart. It would only be about recalling things. We have to kind of continue or supplement that by learning through experience, by getting out, getting hands-on experience and going out and putting the skills to work and experiencing the world. And a great way to do that, although it isn't as open as it used to be, but it will be in the near future, is to get out and travel, to go out and see the country, to see the world, and especially getting out of the US bubble to experience the rest of the world and how things are different. When we do both of these, take both of these tactics, I think we can learn just a tremendous amount. And I'm forever grateful for being able to go out and travel the world here and there on vacations, because every time I came back, I was better. I saw things differently, and that made a difference. When I thought about what topics should we learn, what would make a good life and a well-rounded mind so that we could, again, navigate the world, 5 topics came to mind. And I'll go through each individually, but it was people and relationships, finance, health and wellness, history, as well as your profession, which would be specific to each of us. I'm thinking about people and relationships. I mean, we live and experience our lives by interacting with others, and it's pretty important that we know how to do that effectively. We don't really learn that in school at any level. There are a couple of great sources here. Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People is just incredible. I would recommend anyone to read it if you haven't already, or reread it. Maybe even more than read it, listen to it on Audible. It's an absolute gem. Certainly put in another resource here for marriages. Why not invest a little bit in ourselves so that we can invest and enjoy better relationships during our time here? The next area is financial literacy. I put a few resources in here. The Richest Man in Babylon is a phenomenal work that's been around for decades, and it's an incredible set of stories. Simple Path to Wealth, another one that's come out more recently, but a little bit of financial literacy can go a long way in a very complicated world of finances. Health and wellness, we own our bodies, but we're not really given the manual for how to operate them well. There are a couple of good resources here. Why Do We Sleep? Beautiful book. It's a great audiobook. The Blue Zones, something that helps us, should we say, experience a long life by studying others around the world who have. Let's see. Another area is to go out and learn from history. And if we don't remember history, we are bound to live through it or allow it to happen again, which isn't a good idea. We can learn again so much by getting out of the country, going to Washington, D.C. if it's within country, but get out there and experience it. History is incredible. It's much more interesting than it was taught back in school. And the final item, this is quite specific to me, these examples, but there are certain works, certain books and works that have been written in every industry that are foundational and seminal. Go study those. Take the time to learn them. These books here were written over 20 years ago, And yet I still think they were so foundational for me. You have some in your industry or your line of work as well. Take the time, go read them, go learn from them. Whatever topics you decide to explore, just have fun exploring them and enjoying them. Sample some books. Don't feel obligated to read them all. Go through the ones that work for you. Now, certainly I'll put a plug in here for Toastmasters, but I think we all believe in Toastmasters. It's a great learning environment because we learn by consuming knowledge and also through practice and sharing with others. I want to end with just a couple tips that I thought have kind of worked for me that I would love to share when it comes to a lifelong learning program. It's great to read, but you can also listen to books, whether they're from the library or from Audible. But any audio format that's in a long form, you can use while washing the dishes, vacuuming, doing the mundane tasks that we do. To make it happen, schedule some time every week to learn. And you'll see things change over time, like compound interest, and make it enjoyable, something you look forward to doing every week or every session. I wish you a lifelong of learning, and I hope that we can experience life in full daylight. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Harold.